everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people know the story of Marguerite and Armand. It's very famous. It's the story of La Dame aux Camélias by Dumas. It's very famous in the sense that it's the story of La Traviata, the opera, which Verdi wrote, the music for, and which is probably one of the most famous operas of all time. It's also been done, as a ballet by, I think quite a few choreographers, especially John Normeyer, who's done a full evening work. And I think Ashton, from what I've read, became interested in the story and really wanted to do this ballet because he saw in Fonteyn as the perfect Marguerite, his great muse, but never really never really found the right music that he felt, that would suit the piece. And the story goes that he just happened to be listening to the radio one evening, I think in the late 50s or early 60s, and just happened to hear the Liszt B minor sonata, which is, of course, one of the most famous piano pieces in the repertoire, and a great piece. And it just somehow all fell into place for him. He just saw this piece of music working as a perfect accompaniment for this ballet. And the fantastic thing was that he didn't have to actually, change the music at all. It's played from start to finish. I think there's one small repeat of about 4 bars, but it went from start to finish and told the story in a very succinct, very, very tight way, the essential story of Marguerite and Armand. And then the perfect thing happened, that Nurejew defected and became known in the West, and the relationship of Fonteyn and Nurejew was just in its infant stages. And for Ashton, he was the perfect Armand, and their partnership was the perfect partnership for this ballet. And so, he created it, I think in 1963. Apparently the creative process was very quick, and they all had an enjoyable time. I think it works as a piece because the three elements of a successful piece are all well balanced. There's the music, which of course is this great piece of piano music. The design, which is just absolutely beautiful. It's by Cecil Beaton, who is a great theatrical designer, a great film designer. And then Ashton's idea of the story and the choreography. So those three sort of elements came together in this piece and worked and was a great success for Nurejew and Fonteyn. And they performed it a lot together in the right through the 60s and into the early 70s, when Fonteyn was quite an age. I think the last performances were in like 1972 or so, and so Fonteyn was in her early 50s, so she was quite old as far as a ballerina was concerned, but Nurejew had rejuvenated her, and this whole relationship was world famous, and no one else did it at that time. And then it went out of Fonteyn did less and retired, and So after she retired, it was not performed at all. Because I think it was just because it was associated only with them. In the late 90s, Anthony Dowell, who was the director of the Royal Ballet, then wanted to find something interesting and something worthy for Sylvie Guillaume to do. And she was with the Royal Ballet at that stage as a permanent member then. And I think he'd asked her when she first joined, and she said she didn't think she was suited for it. And then years later, he asked her again, and she looked at it, and because she changed, I suppose, I don't know, but she thought that it would suit her, and so there was a major revival that she did in the late 90s, just as the Royal Ballet actually moved back to the Opera House to the Royal Opera House after it had been renovated. And so she, had a big success in it as well. Unfortunately, Ashton had died since then. I think he died in 1988, so he'd been dead quite a long time. And some people only associate it with Nurejew and Fonteyn. But I think, and some people have said, it should never have been done again. Only Nurejew and Fonteyn should have done it, and then it should have been just put aside. But I think that's a little bit, unfair to deny, the rest of the world or other people, the fact to see this piece. It does need quite special people to do it, and it does need a couple that have a sort of sympathetic sort of relationship with each other, and it does need the dancers to understand the Ashton style. But I also think that, that younger dancers and this generation of dancers, they should be given the chance, to do it and to perform it.